Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is King Leung, Head of FinTech at Invest Hong Kong. It's my great privilege to present to you our FinTechHK webinar series. Now, this webinar is born out of an urgent call for a meeting by FinTech Association of Hong Kong on April 1st. We discussed about the different action to help our FinTech community. Now, since then, some government relief measures were launched, and we've been trying to work very hard to try to disseminate even more information that can help the different folks in the FinTech community in Hong Kong. In other weeks of planning, and I'm honored to present to you today, several experts, not only in the fundraising space, but also have great insights about how to expand the business into the Greater Bay Area. So without further ado, I just want to quickly introduce our three speakers today. First, we have a Michael WOJCIESZEK.
Very good.
Got it. Okay. All right. So Michael is the program director of Betatron. And for those of you who are not familiar with Betatron, it is a Hong Kong-based VC and accelerator in which they have already invested in several fintech companies in Hong Kong. Second, we have Andrea, TIWANA, Senior Vice President, Innovation and Technology, Growth Propositions of HSBC Commercial Banking. And third, we have Raymond, LING, Senior Vice President, Greater Bay Area, HSBC Commercial Banking. And to start with, we have Michael, who's going to share with us some tips about pitching to investors. So off to you, Michael.
Okay, hello. So thanks everyone for having me. Thank you, Invest Hong Kong team. And thanks to everyone who's dialing in. Appreciate your time. So just to start off, I've been given 15 minutes for this and certain questions that I've been asked to go through. Because I want it to be useful as much as possible to whoever's dialing in, you'll get these slides afterwards. And some of these slides I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on, but they're more for you guys to read at the end. So don't worry about the stuff that gets gone through very, very quickly. So, oh, what's going on? Okay, so yeah, just the three questions that I've been asked to focus on is like, what are the key points Betatron looks at when we invest? What are common problems companies have? And what do we suggest they do when they pitch? So what I'm going to do is after I've introduced Betatron, I'll go through each of these things kind of together when I'm looking at areas that we look at for pitching. So very quickly about Betatron, you can get most of this stuff on our website. We're like a network of networks. We are a VC and also an accelerator. We have 6 founding partners in Hong Kong, which are VCs themselves. They've invested in many very prominent Hong Kong startups like Lala Move is Unicorn. We ourselves have accelerated 37. The AUM of our founding partners is more than 600 million. And we've done pretty well in terms of kind of helping the ecosystem. We do a lot of free educational events like this one. And we've been ranked quite highly by the community, which we really appreciate. We've increased our funding amount quite a lot recently. Now we invest up to 500,000 per company, and our application numbers keep increasing. This is an overview of what we do, but I'm not going to go over it in much detail because this is on the website. But essentially, it's a 4-month program. It's very comprehensive. It focuses on kind of top to toe developing your business and also preparing you for kind of next funding round. Specifically, usually we help people get to Series A. And then there's some information on the slides about kind of our process, which I won't spend too much time on. And then again on the slide, there's a link to where you can apply. And yeah, it's 500K US investment, 4-month program. And then there's a roadshow where we do a demo day in Hong Kong, Singapore, and then Silicon Valley. Okay, so this is like an extra thing that I wanted to put in before I go on to the main body of what I'm talking about, which is, you know, what are your funding options? I'm going to be talking about VCs. That's what I've been asked to talk about. But I just want everyone who's on this call to just remember that, you know, VCs aren't actually the only option. There are lots of other options, you know, bootstrapping, friends and family loans, grants, investors, angel syndicates, and really look into the benefits of each one of these, because actually some of them are, depending on the stage that you're in, are better than others. And venture capital is not the best option for some people at certain times. So what do we look for? I get asked this all the time, and often we get asked, what do investors or VCs look for? So the things I'm going to talk about in a minute, the weighting of them varies by VC and investment thesis. And I'll talk about what we think of each one of these and also the three questions, but the following stuff is always in, what people consider. So this is a list of them and then I'll go through them. So problem is, some people think, of course I'm solving a problem, but we have to see that you've validated that. So things that are useful for that is, if you've got industry experience in something, if you've experienced a pain point yourself, that's very good, because then we know that, you've validated it somewhere. If you haven't done it yourself and been in the industry, then you have to have made a conscious effort to have, spoken to your potential clients and seen that this is a problem that is real and is worth solving, and that you can make like a 10x improvement. But then you come to the solution. So the next stage is, we have many founders, especially that come from a corporate background, that think, okay, I've been 10 years in insurance. I know that this is a pain point. That's great, but then it doesn't necessarily mean that your solution is the one that's going to win. There's a lot of people trying to do the same thing as you. So again, even if you've validated somewhat the problem, then you need to show us that you've validated your version of solving it. And I spoke to 10 people, or my family thinks it's good, is not validation. You need to speak to at least 50, 100 people, customers, do pilots, do POCs, and also don't waste time building something without testing it. Just do learn and burn, build an MVP, and get feedback from customers. So again, validations, assumptions, product market fit. Product market fit is something that is very elusive. A lot of companies think they have it, but they don't. Product market fit has many definitions. But one which I like is that you kind of know that you're approaching it when you have too much customers, so that you can't even keep up with the demand. Product. Now, people might think, of course I've got a product, but again, a lot of companies, they don't actually have a scalable product. They have either a non-scalable product, or they have a service. You need to make sure that you've built something which can scale, which moves on to this one. What that means is that as you get more customers, your operational costs and CapEx costs, they don't increase, so that you become more profitable with size. So an example of that would be, if you're using a fully automated system versus a call center. Obviously, a call center is not scalable because you need to hire more and more people. Market and market growth is that we need to see that if all of the above is okay, we need to see that actually the market is big enough to deliver venture returns to us. So of course, with this, and this is where the whole should you pitch to a VC versus should you get a loan thing comes in. VCs make money by making very high risk investments, but knowing that while some of them might fail, the ones that don't fail, the ones that do well, can go 100x, 1000x, and that pays for your whole portfolio. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the potential, the huge potential for growth. So in order to do that, we need to assess how big is the current market. And really, you guys should also show that you've looked at that. And then also to contextualize that. So not only how big is the market right now, but what are the trends in the market? How is the market changing? Either in the case of your target audience, are you targeting a group of people who are increasing in number? A certain age range that's increasing in a certain country? Are you increasing a certain amount of users? Or is the technology that you use something that's increasing? Those kinds of things. And you need to have shown us with your numbers, like what your methodology was to show that your total addressable market was X number. You need to be very prepared for people to question you on that and challenge you. So, many companies, they do this, but they do it very poorly. I'll give you an example, a real example. A company had a sports tech wearable, and they gave this crazy number. It was something like $400 billion market. But what they based that on was, when we looked into it, the total market for all sport, which is a crazy thing to think about, because A, I think it's probably even bigger than that number, but B, what they were doing was one section of that. They were doing wearables, and only for one sport. And also they're doing very high performance wearables. So it wouldn't be for like an amateur, it would be for somebody who's going into pro. So that number that they gave us was completely inaccurate. Defensibility is super important. If your company does well, then two things will happen. People will copy you, or large players will try to either buy you up or destroy you. If they buy you up, that's great. But again, you need to have leverage to get a good price. And that leverage comes from them not being able to copy you. A lot of companies think they have defensibility, but very few really do. Things that are not defensible, which I hear all the time, are things like, I have 10 years experience in the industry and I have a really good network. That's not defensible, because anybody can get that. And if a large company comes in and they go into a new market with a kind of logical structured approach, then they will find a local partner to partner with. That local partner will be from the industry, and they will have the time and the resources to develop that network. So just having a network is not defensible. Things that are defensible, really the best things are proprietary technology that you built yourself. Some people think that patents are defensible, and to be honest with you, that varies very much depending on jurisdiction. In some areas, the rigor, the IP is protected, is not as high as in others. And also in some situations, just filing the patent because it's publicly available information and because of the time it takes for that patent to go from patent pending to actually have been given, helps people copy you in some cases. So, be careful of saying, oh, I'm defensible because I have patent pending. In some cases, that's not really true. And then traction. So, traction is, a lot of people think that just means revenue, but it doesn't. It can mean different things depending on the industry. For example, if you're a med tech or biotech company, everybody knows that it takes much, much, much longer to monetize. You have to do clinical trials, you have to get approval, that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that you can't show traction. You can show your traction in the development of your technology, in the building of your team, in the fact that you've been accepted into clinical trials, in the fact that you have begun the process to get accredited. All of that counts as traction. Whereas, for something else like a SaaS product, yes, of course you look at revenue, but you also break down the segmentation of users. And you have to be smart with the way that you present your traction. Again, when you're presenting, you should be selecting what you think is the best traction metric to show us. And then we will, like ourselves, think, is that the best one? And we'll challenge you. So, again, one that we get all the time is, oh, I have X number of downloads. That doesn't really mean anything. People can download something and never use it. So what we're looking for is, how much time do people use your product every day? Are they recurring customers? Do they just do it one time? What is the value of those transactions? What is the unit economics? What is your customer acquisition cost to lifetime value ratio? Those kinds of things. And as a founder, you should be looking at that right from the beginning and tracking that. Unit economics we've just spoken about. I think this is one of my top three. For me, it's unit economics, founders, and market are my top three, just so you know. It's very important that you guys think about this and think about how this will evolve with your company. So, again, this ties in a lot with scalability. So if your unit economics are such that you cannot really scale without massive infusions of capital over and over and over again, and you haven't really thought of a way to eventually become a profitable, sustainable company, then that could be a problem for some in some industries and with some investors. Founder and team are super important. So with team, what we look for is, is this a team that can show that they can execute? Is this a team that has relevant industry experience? Do they have unique insights into what they're doing? And with founder, we look at the same things, but we also look at, integrity. And this is absolutely key for myself. And I think a lot of people, a lot of investors that I know, because, in the startup world, we expect a high rate of failure because you are doing something new. You are trying to build something that maybe hasn't been done before. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. So it's expected that a lot of these will fail, and that's fine. And also we expect you to need help with stuff, right? Especially if you're applying for a early stage investment or our acceleration program. So you should just be kind of very honest and open about the problems that you're having. Don't try and pretend that everything's perfect, because it makes us think, okay, well, why are you applying for an acceleration program? And the other thing is, please, please, please don't do yourself a disservice by intentionally misrepresenting financials or numbers or anything like that, because it always comes out in the end. Because the further you get down the application process, the more detailed it gets. In the end, with DD, we request bank statements and all that. And then if you get all the way down there, and then we find out that in your initial online application, your GMV was 500,000, and then we look at your audited accounts, and it turns out to be 15,000, and this is another real example. Then we have to ask you the question, why was that so different? And it's awkward, and it also brings into question, okay, either you were incompetent because you didn't realize how big the difference was between what you stated and what your actual was, or you were intentionally trying to be deceptive. And if you get the reputation of being intentionally deceptive or lacking integrity, it's really hard to get rid of that, because even if your current project fails or if you move on or something, whatever project you do, you'll be involved in it. People, we again, in the startup world, you expect a high turnover of people with projects in that, they're very talented, hardworking people, but the projects that they're working on might change, and that's fine. And actually, we really try and keep connected with people that have applied with us, so that if the project that they're on changes, if they go to a new one, or if they're free, we can connect them with people who need a new CTO or something. But if you're seen to kind of lack integrity, then it's very difficult to shake that. So please don't feel pressured to massage numbers or even lying by omission as well. Just don't do that. Just maintain your integrity at all costs. Then briefly pitching. I've got 2 minutes left. So fundraising materials. So again, these are mostly for you guys to have a look at afterwards. So form follows function. There are different types of fundraising materials you should have. A teaser, a deck that's made for presentation, a deck that's meant to be read, and a fundraising deck. And they are all very different. These are real examples I'm going to show you now of one of our alumni companies. And it's focusing on the same bit of information, but presented in different ways. So read-only decks, of course, they're supposed to be read, right? So it's a small number of slides, very information dense, and it's fine if you have multiple different ideas, right? So like, for example, here you've got traffic and traction and acquisition channels all on one slide. That's fine because you're reading it. You want more dense slides and less slides, because you don't want, when you receive these by email, you don't want to see like, oh God, it's 55 slides. You want to see 10, 12 max. But then presentation deck is almost the opposite of this. So if you're presenting, I mean, like my slides today, they have one word on them because I want you to listen to what I'm saying. And the slide is just there to kind of support it. So the presentation deck is completely different, right? All it's there to do is be a support to the speaker. It's very, very simple. It should help visualize, understand, remember, and convince. This slide, for example, when they presented it on demo day, actually each one of these icons was one by one animated so that you could control exactly what people were looking at and listen to the speaker. Again, as you can see here, there's only one idea per slide, right? This website traffic, qualified leads, traction, if you compare them to the previous one. A 2-page teaser, or you can do 1 page, is very, very dense, very graphical, very skimmable. It's intended to be very quickly read and give somebody a taste of what your company does. It should be designed in a way that it makes it very easy to navigate so that whoever's interested in which part, they can find that very quickly. If I'm an investor and I really want to know, just straight away, all I care about is traction. Even before I want to know what you do, I look straight at the traction part. And then I think, okay, that's good enough. What do they actually do? Or I want to see the team. And again, this is something that should be very widely circulated. So don't include anything that's confidential. I mentioned that because of the investor deck. So here, I'm not going to give you an example because actually, and the difference between an investor deck and the other ones is that an investor deck can contain sensitive information. So you should watermark it with the date, who it's sent to, and the fact that it's not to be shared. So that if somebody does want to share it, they let you know. You should also date all of the other materials, just because if they are circulated, often we'll get stuff from people saying, oh, this company might be interesting to you. It's good to have a date on the material so that we know, oh, this is what the company was doing 6 months ago. So just get into the habit of putting dates on stuff, and then make sure that you have a prepared data room. And that is me in 16 minutes. Sorry.
Yep. Spot on.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Now, I just want to quickly change gear to Andrea. Basically, Andrea provides strategic coverage of venture capital firms operating in GBA, and you are providing the focus to them about deploying your GBA plus technology fund in terms of this senior debt financing arrangement. Now, so with that, I guess off to you, Andrea, to help us learn a bit more about the expansion into GBA.
Thank you very much, King. So good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here this morning to speak to you all about the opportunities and the support that HSBC can give when considering expansion into the Greater Bay Area. So to start with, I have to give a bit of a confession and profess that I'm by no means an expert, having moved to Hong Kong about 10 to 11 months ago. But I think already I've seen the importance of the region and how that can help any company of any size, both in terms of anything from supply chain management to fundraising to hiring to a new addressable market. And we'll expand on some of these things and how we can help throughout the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes. The second confession I have to make is that if we were pitching to Betatron, we'd probably fail because if you look at our slides, they're very read-only heavy. So apologies for that, but I guess we're hoping that people can take these away and have a read later. So I thought I'd start, given the context of the audience and potentially some international attendees, to give a little bit of context in terms of how we see the opportunities and the ambitions in the Greater Bay Area. So to start from the very beginning, so it's a strategic initiative that was developed to support a cluster of world-class cities supported by economic reform, integration, and increased connectivity. As you can see on the map, it's a region comprised of 9 cities in the Guangdong province of China, and then 2 special administrative regions being Hong Kong and Macau. It's actually a very large region in terms of size, which I'm sure many of you know on the call. It's about 56,000 square kilometers, including a population of about 70 million people. And I think also what's interesting to note is that the market is already relatively externally facing, accounting for about 40% of China's export market, whereas actually only accounting for about 10% of China's GDP. So we're already starting from a good place in terms of how to work with the region as an international fintech population that we're talking to today. So another point of context, which I think is helpful and ties into some of the ambitions mentioned on the slide, is that 4 key cities have been identified to have certain assigned focus areas. Hong Kong, with its heritage in international trade, is seen as an international finance, transport and trade centre, and can link the region to the rest of the world. We look to Shenzhen as a special economic zone, and that's going to be seen to be the creativity and innovation hub, and is already home to some of the largest tech giants in the world and a thriving tech ecosystem. If you look at Macau, that's going to be the focus of leisure and tourism. And then Guangzhou will act as an international commerce and logistics and industry center, and the center of the integrated transport hub. So in the context of that, I think we can see that it's very important that, we take advantage of all of the different opportunities across these different cities. And especially around the Pearl River Delta, there's an increased focus on advanced manufacturing, which will support many different companies with their supply chain requirements. To support this, there have been 2 major projects that have been announced from a transport perspective and actually already launched, being the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and also the Express Rail Link connecting Guangzhou, Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And there are many other transport and infrastructure plans in the pipeline which should help ease some of the logistical constraints currently around the area. So taking a turn to HSBC and our heritage in the GBA region. So we, as everybody knows, have deep roots in Hong Kong, and we've also played a leading role as an international trade bank for over 150 years. Importantly as well, HSBC is very committed to our presence in the Guangdong province, with the largest distribution network among the foreign banks. And we recently launched a number of international and local initiatives to support GBA development and expansion. So on that note, I will turn to Raymond, who is based in the Guangdong province and is part of the dedicated team to support businesses in the Greater Bay Area. And then I'll spend some time on the GBA Plus Technology Fund, as King mentioned, because that's my area of focus.
Yep, thanks, Andrea. And today I'm really glad to be invited by Invest Hong Kong to join the webinar to share some GBA opportunities and insight with all of you. And as mentioned by Andrea, undoubtedly right now GBA is definitely a key initiative in China with different kinds of like the focus among the GBA cities. So for us as a HSBC, and as mentioned by Andrea, we do put our emphasis in the GBA cities as well. So we are the first foreign bank to establish all the branches in the 21 prefecture cities in Guangdong. And we also have more than like 60 outlets among the GBA cities to cover the client's needs. So I will just provide some brief overview for all of you guys to understand what types of like the service and also the products we can provide, especially to support the clients to be expanded into the GBA cities. So it's nothing like very complex or fancy, but for us to provide some sort of like the product solutions to commercial clients, on the very simplicity, saying that we can provide some basic accounting for our commercial clients to allow them to support them on their daily operations and also on their cash management across GBA cities, including Hong Kong, Macau, and other 9 cities in Guangdong province. And for the complex needs, we can also provide some sort of like the financing solutions, risk management, and also advisory services to them to tailor-made for customize their needs. So, so another like the key, I understand that a lot of you guys today joining the call are the Hong Kong or international startups that are willing or like interested to expand in GBA cities. And this is especially relevant for all of you guys that in case you guys need some tailor-made support and also some sort of like the consultation from how to expand in GBA, we are more than happy to help you to locate and also to connect with our teams across the GBA cities. And a quick example I would like to give you guys is recently we have deal with a startup company headquartered in Hong Kong. And then the company is engaged in like the producing softwares and also applications for the consumers to satisfy their needs. So what they are trying to do is they would like to expand in the GBA cities to capture the market there and also to acquire the local talents on the technology part there in Shenzhen and other GBA cities. So after they open an account, open the company in the GBA cities, they swiftly just engage our banks and also to involve us to establish the bank account with them. So our bank is enabled to provide them a one-stop digital solutions, including WeChat, mobile, and also online platform for them to easily manage their bank accounts across onshore in China and also offshore in Hong Kong for them to manage their accounts in a one-stop service. And this type of examples happening from day to day and every day. So it's really helped for our bank to utilize our heritage and also our expertise to provide a one-stop solutions for all the clients across the areas. And I would like to pass to Andrea to discuss a little bit more about the GBA Tech Fund.
Yeah. Thanks, Raymond. So I guess start from the beginning. So what is the GBA Plus Technology Fund? So as mentioned on the slide, it's an $880 million lending fund, enabling us to provide senior debt financing to high growth companies in the new economy sector. So these can be local and international companies, and they're typically very fast growing and using external investment from venture capital firms like the sort of partners that Betatron has to help with expansion and sort of new product development and all the things that, as Michael was saying, are kind of more attributable to kind of high risk, high reward risk profile. But generally we're looking at companies that are sort of Series B round and beyond, a little bit more mature than the Betatron focus. But even at that point, then these businesses aren't profitable yet. Typically, they're investing to grow and spending a lot of money at the overheads level on new sales staff or new product development. So that can be a bit tricky from a traditional bank financing perspective to support. I imagine that some of you as well will have come across venture debt offerings in other parts of the world or from other institutions. Here, we're instead focusing actually on relatively traditional working capital trade finance facilities that can complement the sort of the investment rounds that the business has probably received from external investors. This is a senior debt ranking solution, as I mentioned, and also there's no warrant requirement, so no equity dilution, and as a result works quite well alongside a venture capital fundraising round. And the businesses that we tend to work with on this solution, and we have actually worked with some Betatron cohort companies at a later stage on the GBA Plus Tech Fund. Generally, we're looking at businesses that are fast growing, they have an identifiable market, a fully commercialized product, they're in the very fast growth stage of the business, but they also have a working capital need, which shouldn't really be funded by venture capital money. It's usually a relatively small organization where they're facing off to a large enterprise customer on relatively long payment terms, or there's a long contract with milestone payments. And actually the working capital cycle, having spoken to these customers, can quite easily and traditionally be financed using this fund. And we have dedicated people in the organization who have been working with these new economy customers and their profiles and understand that the financial metrics may not look like a more mature business would. And on that, I think fintech is definitely a focus area for us and for the new economy strategy at HSBC in general. And that's alongside other sectors like e-commerce, health tech, robotics, some of these areas where, just as Michael was saying, there's a clear total addressable market, there's growth potential in the business, but there's a lot of money having to be invested to grow the product and the service offering. And actually, as you go to the next slide, you can understand why fintech is such a key area of focus for us. When we did a survey recently of 700 plus clients with KPMG to specifically focus on the Greater Bay Area, actually technology and innovation and financial services were some of the key sector beneficiaries of the development of the Greater Bay Area. And also, I think what's useful from an insight perspective is to have a think about what these companies are actually spending their money on in terms of Greater Bay Area expansion. The top points were marketing and brand building, hiring the right people, so identifying talent and recruiting them, and also building a physical presence in the area, so factories and offices. And actually the way that the cities are set up and their focus areas works quite well for different sectors and different expertise. So also to complement that, Raymond and I have both spoken to a number of customers recently who are expanding across the Greater Bay Area. And we wanted to pull out some key themes that we found when we were talking to these customers about where they feel the opportunity is and how they're going about it. So I think that the first key theme that always comes out, as I think has been mentioned a few times, is around enhancing and leveraging the specialist expertise, both in terms of manufacturing and technology across particularly the Guangdong province itself, and how that can support your supply chain or your requirements in terms of the product offering that you provide. The second is the market opportunity, both looking in and out. So we speak to a lot of firms who are very excited about the identifiable and addressable market, both from a consumer perspective and also from a business perspective in China, but also Chinese companies also looking out in terms of the international markets that they can provide their products to. The third would be international trade considerations. And Hong Kong as a hub, there's a lot of flow through in and out of China from a physical and also services orientated supply chain perspective. So the region is well set up to help support that and support that process, and as a leapfrog landing board into Asia itself. The fourth is definitely cost. So it may be the cost benefit and the efficiencies gained from having a more international supply chain, but it also, a lot of companies we speak to who are based in Hong Kong have been thinking about split office presence and the rent and associated costs in Hong Kong. And actually we've referred a number of names into Raymond's team where they're considering building a presence in Shenzhen, where there's a good flexible working space and an ecosystem already developing for startups. The final one is definitely access to capital markets and foreign investment. It's a well-trodden path into Hong Kong for many companies. So hopefully we've whet your appetite for some of the opportunities for your business in the GBA. And Raymond's just going to briefly touch upon some of the practicalities of setting up across the border.
Yes, I believe that once you have heard that the opportunities in GBA, definitely one key question is in mind. So how to start the business in GBA? So what types of procedure we'll be facing, and what kind of obstacle we'll be facing? So here I would like to provide you guys some quick thoughts on the above questions. And the first thing always comes to my mind that if I have the action plan on develop the business in GBA, no matter start of a company there or like to enter the market to get the sense that, so how can we start to do so? And the first thing, and the first step is very important part, and obviously it's not that difficult, as you need to open a company in China first. So how can it be done? It can be done by applying through the local state administration of industry and commerce. So that will be some sort of like the paper forms for you to filling in to illustrate your business plan, to have some sort of like your beneficial owners information, allow you to form the company first. And before you forming the company, there are two key factors you need to be considered before you get the action to be done. And the first part is obviously you need to check with the local legislative, legal, and also the regulatory compliance on your side. And as in the GBA cities, especially in China, there will be some limitation on certain business area you can be focused in. For example, there may be some restrictions to be imposed if for the foreign companies or even foreign individuals to invest in the GBA cities companies. So you need to think twice and also to ensure that your proposed business engagements are fall within the regulations set out by the PRC governments. So that's the first step. And the second step is you need to understand also the incentive schemes provided by the local city governments. And because a lot of governments in the GBA cities are very supportive to the startups there, especially for the Hong Kong and also international people and entrepreneurs to get into the cities. And the very important part to know is you need to understand the subsidies and also some sort of like the tax rebates and all the other kind of allowance to be given by the local governments. And that's very important part for you to pick a right city and also right place for you to start a business with. And once you have counted these two factors and also factor into your decision-making process, you can progress to the next stage and get a company open. And next stage, very important part, will be open a bank account in the GBA cities. And it is not worth mentioning that there are different types of bank accounts in China, especially in GBA cities as well. So the first type of bank account is called Renminbi basic account. So what it means is it acts as your primary account to support your daily operations as well as to give out give your salary to your fellow employees. And the important part is you can only open one Renminbi basic account among the bank you have of your choice. And the second account will be the Renminbi general account. So the big difference between the basic account and general account will be for the general account, you are allowed to establish more than one account at your own discretion and also to suitable for your own business operations model. You are allowed to collect the payments and also to pay for your suppliers, vendors. But the only key difference is you cannot use that to deliver the salary to your employees and also to withdraw the cash. And the third account is called the foreign capital account. So it allows you to collect and also pay the international payments through your onshore accounts. And it is particularly relevant, and also you need to be ensured that you need to follow the local safe regulations because bear in mind that China is a capital controlled country. And for all the international transactions, especially in the terms of trade, you need to have some sort of like documents to support and also substantiate your transactions in order for the banks to proceed your transactions. So once you understand the three types of accounts that you are going to encounter with in China, the next step the whole account opening process will be not pretty much the same compared to Hong Kong. So the first thing you need to do is you need to prepare relevant documents that no matter on the company documents and also the documents that substantiate your business operations and also the models, as well as your own decision makers biography, as well as the experience. So once you gather this type of information and send it to the bank's representative, the bank will undergo an internal approval procedure and then to allow you to open an account. So basically, after you open an account, you are pretty much ready to rent the office and also hire the employees and ready for your business to kickstart with, as long as you comply with the local government regulations. So I guess that's part of my sharing, and I'm happy to open to the audience to see if you guys have any further questions, and feel free to get in touch with me and Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. I guess with this Q&A session, we'd like to address some of the questions we received from the audience first. The first question that I have is directed. So the question is, are you considering to increase or decrease investment?
Neither. We just do it based on the quality of the applications. So, I mean, I don't really understand. I don't know whether the question is related to COVID or what, but I mean, so in terms of the next 12 months, like, so we're planning to invest in between 8 to 12 companies for the next cohort, which is the same as normal. The investment amount, of course, has gone up again, as it has for every cohort. We really do make the decisions just based on the quality of the companies. So, you know, like if there's more really, really good ones, then we'll make more investments. If there's less that we think are the best investment at the time, we'll just make less. So it's all based on the companies themselves.
The audience basically just clarify why the question asked is related to macroeconomic.
Yeah.
Not because of what's happening.
The COVID thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you said or scale up, because actually this is a really good opportunity for disruptive startups. So, you know, in our alumni about 3 months ago, just when this first began, we have like monthly alumni check-ins, and what we did was we set an agenda for every one of our alumni. How are you going to deal with this? What's your contingency planning? How are you going to adapt? And as a result of that, half of our alumni have actually benefited from the new kind of reality of COVID. And, you know, as we've been getting all these pitches of these 2,000 companies for the next cohort, we always ask as well, you know, like, how has this affected you? What are you doing to proactively adapt? Because there are a lot of companies which, by the nature of what they do, will benefit anyway, especially if they're scalable tech products to do with kind of automation of work. And a lot of other companies the founders have done a really good job of not pivoting, but adapting their value offering to what the world needs a lot more now. So actually it's a very, very good time for disruptive tech companies, because in a way it's kind of like fast forwarding the world to take on a lot of these technological innovations, which were already being taken up, but at a much slower pace than now. And the obvious example is like everybody knows what Zoom is now, right? So, yeah.
Well, we have a few questions related to investment and also the setup aspect. So maybe we should stay with the investment side.
Okay.
Change gear talk about the setup aspect. So let's stay with the inside for a moment. The next question, this is for all the panelists, is can you share your understanding about different local subsidies, FDI policy, GBA cities?
What was the last thing? GBA?
FDI.
GBA cities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I think I can start first. Maybe you guys can add on that. And obviously, different cities will have different incentive schemes to, as I mentioned, to promote and also to encourage the startup to open their business in the GBA cities. And it is particularly relevant, especially right now under the GBA initiatives. So you can see that a couple of examples in Guangzhou, Nansha, in Shenzhen, Qianhai, there are definitely a lot of incubator there and also incentive schemes there to provide some sort of like the cash subsidies and also the tax rebates for the startup company to enter in the cities and to get their operation started. So, well, in detail, the information, I suggest every one of you to check on the local government's website and the PRC part, because they are very everyday and they will be changing from time to time based on the current environment. And also for the FDI policies, and I do, as you guys may be aware of that right now, definitely in China, there will be some of the restricted industry that are restricting for the foreign investment to come in. So a couple of key examples will be the bank and the insurance company, but we do see there some sort of relaxation happening in the GBA cities. But for the fintech part, there will be much more tricky part compared, given the local regulations and also the local policies. So it will hit different types of fintech companies. So if you are pure software type of companies, so you do have some freedom on doing the business there. But depends if you are a money operator and also a money handling business. So it may subject to a local environment vary from time to time. So that's my quick sense of the questions that have been asked.
Okay, there was there are a few questions about the question, because previously the mic ran low on battery. So maybe I would just repeat the question about the answers that Raymond was addressing. Essentially, the question was about sharing more information about local subsidies and FDI, the foreign direct investment policy at different GBA cities. So Raymond just offered his perspective. So one other perspective from the Hong Kong perspective is that there are numerous funds offered by the Hong government. And one of them is called a BUD fund, a BUD. And it is essentially a fund that offers some money for the local Hong Kong registered companies to expand beyond Hong Kong. And typically it comes in the form of branding, marketing, kind of subsidies. And there are actually numerous funds that not only Hong Kong offer, but also our peers in Shenzhen and so on are offering to companies there too. And since this today is meant to be an overview of some of the key, information for the audience, please stay tuned because we have another series of GBA webinars coming, I would say, over the next 6 weeks. So we will have 4 other webinars specifically talking about GBA, in which 2 of them talk about GBA from a Hong Kong perspective. The other 2 are from our friends over across the border from Shenzhen, in which they will invite some Shenzhen government officials that will talk about some of the subsidies offered by the Shenzhen government as well. So stay tuned, there will be more information to come. Now, so quickly to moving on to the next question, and I think this is more for Michael. And the question is about, let's say, would you consider blockchain projects that have nothing to do with finance?
Yeah, of course. We're an agnostic fund, so we don't have to focus on one industry. And in fact, if you look at all of our investments, we don't have a heavy focus on fintech. We do lots of different industries. We have certain preferences internally. So we do quite like logistics. We like maritime shipping. We like enterprise SaaS. It's not that we don't like, but I'm trying to be diplomatic. There's yeah, but there's also like certain things which have had a tougher time getting past us, such as hardware. But we have invested in like two hardware startups. So yeah, we are actually very, very agnostic, and intentionally so. We review that in every cohort. We always decide, okay, are we going to specialize? Are we going to subspecialize? Are we going to have a stream? And we always decide to remain agnostic because there's a lot of benefits from doing that. We don't get sucked into trends, and we also discover companies which don't kind of neatly fit sometimes into categories or into what's like hot at the moment. One of our best investments, one of our kind of star performers has been a company called ICW from cohort 2. That company's in compliance, right? So it doesn't really fall into any category. It's also not a particularly sexy industry, and yet it's done extremely well since our investment. And it's also was the very first company in Hong Kong to be awarded the government co-investment. So again, yeah, very much we are sector agnostic and welcome all industries. It just has to be like scalable, defensible, and a clear reason for current investment right now.
Okay, so I guess the short answer is Michael has his wallet wide open. Okay, so that's good. All right. Now, I guess another very practical question from the guests is what are some tactical and strategic things that startups can do during this downtime? Any advice?
Okay. So I would say to you, if you haven't done this already, then you're really lagging behind. You should have done all this like a month ago, 2 months ago in this first hit. But if you haven't done it, do it now. Get all of your team to separately, whoever's in each person that's in charge of whichever their area, to really look at top to toe, like what can be challenged, what can be changed about the way of doing things now in order to adapt to what is needed, and in order to be able to like extend your runway as well. Those 2 things. And then also, in addition to that, to think of the new needs that are not being met by our customers. So, for example, there's one company who, what they were supposed to be doing was they were supposed to be doing ticketing for online and offline events, right? And they've massively shifted to online events, which is expected. But what they've also done, this is based in Brazil, they've also pivoted slightly, and what they're offering services for ordering physical goods from supermarkets and being able to help with the logistics of that, because they had like logistics of anyway. So just look at top to toe what your company can do to adapt and also extend your runway, because cash flow is a problem for everybody, but then also potential opportunities. And then once you've given your team the chance to do that, we'll get together and discuss it and just have it be that, nothing is off the table. Don't just keep doing things the way you're doing things, because you won't survive. The most important thing right now is to be agile and be adaptable to this new reality, and know that it's potentially not going to go back to normal anytime soon, and potentially there will be long-term changes which are permanent as well. That's what I'd say.
Thanks, Michael. So I think a lot of the conversations that we've been having are very similar. I think at the moment, cash flow forecasting is key. So I think spend as much time as possible thinking about a really sensible 13, 12-week forecasting. Get support from your investors or from advisors if you need to be able to do that. And then think very critically and honestly about ways that you can manage flexible costs in this time. So a lot of the places where we've been talking to customers is around like new customer acquisition marketing and trying to be a bit more innovative and flexible in the way that that's done. Maybe going back to renegotiate certain things with suppliers or even contractors that you're working with. We completely recognize that these are not easy things to do, but it's definitely conversations we've been having recently. And then, just as Michael was saying, the best businesses in this environment are agile and they're being flexible and they're proactively thinking about ways to address new customer needs. So one customer that we've been working very closely with on the GBA Plus Technology Fund has seen a really large boom in delivery services in the region, but they've now built a sort of quick out-the-box SaaS solution for merchants who don't really have a decent online presence to just quickly build one, and then tagging in their delivery services at the back. So being very respondent and also open to any ideas in your team, I think is really important. While everybody's working from home, maybe not for much longer, but certainly at HSBC, we're still working from home quite a lot. Be constantly communicating and keeping an honest and open dialogue with all of your team members. That's it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Right. Now, I think that we have three main questions that I want to just sort of cluster them together. Well, so three main themes, I would say. Now, the first is about a very practical question. Essentially, the question is, what are some resources out there for training and preparation of marketing materials, presentation, design, etc., that startups with a tight budget can use? So obviously, of course, hiring an agency would be nice, but then if that's not an option, what are some of the advice? Obviously, I think the last thing that on people's mind for startups is to, again, spend lots of time playing around with visuals when they are busy, right? Building business, the product testing and everything, right? But then at the same time, this is very important. To illustrate, the solution and what they are trying to say in a succinct way to get across to clients and investors. So the question is how can you do that without a professional team that came from the agency background, or even hire some agency to do that? Any advice?
Do you want to start? Or do you?
I don't mind.
Well, I think just from my perspective, I think Michael's will be more useful. There's lots of free resources out there, and also for I mean, to be honest, it's probably too much. I think you could we've used you can find like the first pitch that Uber did online. Like there's all sorts of things that you can find online, especially using kind of LinkedIn. Some of them are creative resources from there. Utilize the networks and the opportunities here in Hong Kong. So be it, liaising with someone like a Betatron, or looking at Angel Hub, HSBC partnerships with Albright, which is a female entrepreneurship kind of network. And there's a specific pitch day that we run to help with pitching, and both from a verbal and non-verbal perspective. But generally the teasers and the information that we get sent, we don't really expect it to look amazing. You know, it's just a PowerPoint presentation, and actually the messaging is just as Michael was saying is just as important, and the numbers behind it are just as important. So more important. So especially in this time, I would be quite forgiving to yourself about, I wouldn't suggest anyone uses an agency at the startup stage, but just utilizing the resources and the network that you have to help get some insight and some color around kind of what your proposition is doing, and whether there's an obvious need for it is far more important than a shiny PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. So just to clarify, it was like two things, right? It was like presentations, and it was also marketing and PR, right? It was
I suppose those are the important things.
Yeah. So presentations, I think, and like stuff that you should just do yourself for fundraising. I think totally agree with Andrea. The content is the most important thing. It doesn't matter that much that it's very well designed in terms of aesthetics. It's important that it's very well designed in terms of being able to read it easily and quickly and understand what you're doing. And again, there is a ton of this stuff online. I mean, you know, you can watch all the demo days and that kind of stuff. The other thing is in terms of like the marketing part. So if you're talking about like reaching out to your customers, right, and doing BD and that kind of thing. So actually, you know, it's very easy and very cheap to hire a virtual assistant, especially in Southeast Asia, to do certain things like, you know, to do like cold emailing, to manage your CRM, that kind of stuff. It's very, very cheap and easy to set that up. There's also lots of free programs out there which help you to do that. So of course, everybody knows about HubSpot, but you know, there's loads of other ones as well, which don't have all of the functionality of HubSpot, but they have some. Like for example, Boomerang, what that does is it continuously resends emails to you until somebody replies. On the average, it takes 7 emails to get an investor to reply to you. Not with us, but with some people. So you know, there's tons and tons and tons of these like free plugins that you can use. There's a limit often to how much you can use them, but again, for a startup stage, just to start using them. And then there's a level a little bit above that, depending on if you've got a bit more money, is, you know, there's certain companies that like Glintz, it's a Hong Kong company, and they do, again, they're kind of like between an agency and like a VA. Like they do kind of managed resources, but it's not as expensive as having a whole team. So there are loads of things out there for you to do.
Right. Well, I guess as a general answer, there's a sister team at Invest Hong Kong called Start Me Up, HK, in case the audience may not be familiar. The website is www.startmeup.hk. So essentially, my friends and colleagues, Jane and her team, working tirelessly. They work like super long hours. They're trying to connect with like everybody in Hong Kong related to the different aspects of startup, from the fundraising, you know, to the client access, you know, doing all kind of, you know, events. So they are actually a good starting points for startups that are looking for resources. And then I'm sure that Jane's team at Start Me Up Hong Kong can point you to the right resource. Now, so with that, I just want to end with one last question, and that's more on the setup side for GBA. And maybe I'll just read the question to Andrea and Raymond. Okay, so actually it's a two-part question. Now, do you have a dedicated team in Hong Kong to help startups to open bank accounts? And the second bit is, this is probably more for China. In registering companies and opening bank accounts, how do you find the level of English in the banks and with the local regulators? Is it essential to have a Mandarin speaker involved in this process?
Well, maybe I can start to share some thought on that. I think for the first part of the question is, do we have the dedicated account opening teams in Hong Kong to support the startups? And the short answer is yes. So we do have the dedicated teams to go over your applications for the bank accounts, no matter in Hong Kong, or to guide you through, to connect you with our HSBC China branch. So I guess we are more than happy to discuss with every one of you individually on your request, and also to support your expansion plan, as I mentioned just now, through our conversations. And the second part is regarding the language proficiency level in China. So I'm assured that for all the HSBC staff, especially for the client-facing staff, they do have the capability of speaking English with you. So in case English is a much more convenient and also preferred language for you. So I guess that's fine for on the bank's perspective. But it may be cautious for you to like to further explore with the language capabilities across the local government bodies and other kind of external partners and also other kinds of external parties. And it may be vary on the language proficiency levels. So, but I would see that from time to time, I do see that some startup companies still need to find someone to communicate in Mandarin with the local government bodies and also to appoint someone to do the things for you. But I'm assured that for the bank's perspective and also for our service we will provide, we are more than happy to support you in English.
Well, there's one last question that just popped up, and I think we should at least give our best shot to answer it. Now, so the question is, what are some tips on soft marketing you would give to startups, meaning blogging, thought leadership, to establish your firm's position as a thought leader in the space? Would you say this is a distraction from the core business of the startup?
I mean, quickly from my side, I think it really depends on what the business is doing and the message that you're trying to provide. If you feel like you're adding value to your customer base or you're encouraging traffic to your website, your platform, your product, then that's okay. But to put something together of high quality takes quite a lot of time. And also you want to make sure it goes to the right place. So, you know, HSBC, we've just launched a Vision Go platform, which is, there's a lot of thought leadership on there and it's intended to be a community for our customers. I understand that the traffic through that is positive and there are many other ways you can do that, but, you know, just try and be very selective around how you do that and the message that you're providing, because there is so much content out there and your time is so precious that, you know, you just want to make sure that you're getting the sort of return on investment in terms of the input that you're putting in. And that's my 2 cents anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. So yeah, totally depends on the company and what you're doing. Totally takes a long while, not a long while, but don't put something out unless it's high quality, because the whole point is that you're trying to show that you're, you know, very good at what you do, right? So it does take time, and as a startup, the biggest thing is always bandwidth and resources, right? So I mean, there are many other ways to get people to notice you without doing, you know, loads and loads of blogging and content and that kind of stuff. You can take part in communities. You can just even by the way you do SEO and make sure that you're maximizing traffic to your site and being active on LinkedIn, Twitter, that kind of stuff. I think of course, you do want to become eventually active, but it just really, really depends on exactly what you're doing. And if you do choose to do it, then as Andrea said, make sure that you're monitoring. In fact, just for everything you do as a startup and as a company, you should always monitor everything, always follow the data, always A/B test everything. Like if you've got any internal discussion in the team as to whether you should do A or B, don't discuss it a bit and then just test them both out. So for example, if you're sending out a newsletter and someone thinks it should have this title and someone thinks it should have this title, test it out, do half-half. See what the open rate is and the click-through rate is. So just constantly like follow the data and monitor what you're doing and what the ROI is. Ultimately, that is the thing that will tell you. You be very careful about like hunches and gut instinct, because sometimes it's very counterintuitive. Sometimes it's good, but just always like follow your data and follow what you're doing. And if something isn't working out, that's fine. Just move on to something else.
Well, I know that we have been overrunning a bit. So I just want to thank the audience, and I hope that you found the sharing helpful. Again, we are doing this for you, I mean, for our community, to make sure that we are all supporting each other. And I just want to thank our speakers to take out the time from the schedule, Michael, Andrea, and Raymond. And also want to thank my colleagues, whom you cannot see them, Isaac, Francesca, Tony, and Anna, for making today's possible. And also our CMO who just stepped out, Edith, for, again, all these hard work behind the scene. So thank you very much, and stay tuned. Actually, we are working super hard. We have a whole host of webinars coming your way. And again, we're trying to bring to you useful information. So stay tuned on our FinTechHK page on LinkedIn and our website. Okay, thank you very much.